And to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up. It's still a great intro. And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I'm Tom Marino, host of this week, editor of This Week in Worcester. I'm here with Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is a valued and featured contributor to This Week in Worcester. He's also president of Hollywood Film Group and executive producer of Managing Media. Hello, Mr. John.
I'm featured.
I don't know where we came up with that title for you, but it works. You were also tied for the second best John of all time, apparently.
Second best. For some reason, I'm going very slow. Is that happening for you or just for me?
Seems fine.
Okay.
You know, the internets. Thanks, Charter. Oh yeah, you're a little delayed, but we'll deal with it. So, how was your week been? Before we dive in, or was your last week? That is.
It was okay. We're under a deadline for Neighborhood Strings, that documentary we're working on for the Worcester Chamber Music Society. So that's due like this week. So that's always interesting when you're on deadline. Wrote a bunch of stuff for you. Wrote a bunch of stuff in general. Just busy, normal, busy, constant, driving, moving, going all over the place, doing various activities. Pretty good.
Good. So I didn't count, but I want to say, God, it's got to be, I mean, it's definitely in excess of 10,000 words I did on the series, on the Worcester Police Department and the DOJ report, kind of the aftermath of it. Published the final piece on Friday, titled Police Reform Policies Worcester Will Never Consider, because they won't. And I really first wanted to flush out the big lie about this whole thing, which is that the recommendations in the DOJ report mean anything at all. They don't. They're boilerplate stuff. I'm sure they're not all the same in every report that the DOJ does, but so maybe boilerplate's the wrong boilerplate's the wrong way to say it, but it's generalized stuff. The real work comes in this what's supposed to be an interim period between the release of the report and then they get to an agreement between the two parties involved here at the DOJ and the Worcester Police Department. That doesn't seem to be moving forward at all. Everybody tells us nothing's changed, but it doesn't seem like the process is playing out. People in the city have said they haven't heard from DOJ in forever. But that agreement often goes to court, so it kind of is a legally binding agreement between the two parties called a consent decree. And in that document is where the actual substance of policy is, and the things that the federal government's saying, these are the things you need to do. And it is much more detailed and much more robust than these dumb 19 or 18 recommendations that were in the report. Not that those aren't worthwhile things to do, but that's not the meat of this whole process. But of course, then we had a presidential election, and apparently the Civil Rights Division is now focused on things said about the president that he doesn't like, not actual civil rights work. So so here we are. So what the future of this DOJ process is really murky. Doesn't seem like anybody really knows where we're at or where we're going. But I pulled out some policies, mostly from Minneapolis's consent decree. Now, again, Minneapolis took a much different approach. They, as I wrote about in the last piece in this series, the federal government under the Trump administration went to court and says we don't want to enforce this consent decree. We're bailing on it, and the court says you have the right to do that, so they bailed on it. So they're not now. Minneapolis is not required to do any of this. And the day that the federal government filed that in court, their mayor and police chief went on TV to tell the people of Minneapolis that they're going to do the things in the consent decree anyway. Compared to here, where it's like nothing was wrong, even though we're doing these 18 things, but nothing was wrong. Even though we're making the changes they told us to make, but nothing was wrong. So why are you changing things if nothing's wrong? See the statements, how they don't seem to align. Nonetheless, so I just wanted to take you through these horrible policies that are very draconian and shouldn't, it's just too much. Like, disciplinary matrix. So this again comes from Minneapolis. Is consent, make publicly available protocol how you're classifying different forms of misconduct, categorize them into category groups, and then prescribe a penalty, those, range of a penalty, and then of course also take in prior history and other stuff. But it sets some groundwork or some guidelines on what the penalties are for different classifications of misconduct. Why wouldn't
it's off? We can't hear you. So Tom is
that's why that is such a bad thing.
Now he's back.
Hello?
You're there. You're clear. Now you're clear.
Okay. So tell me why a disciplinary matrix would be such a terrible thing. Why we would have prescribed ranges of penalties for certain types of misconduct. Tell me why it's bad.
Because you're picking on them. I don't know. Stop picking on them, Tom. Be nice. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. So to me, I think there's like, if they were going to make the right argument, it would mean they would have to then come out against mandatory sentences, right? Because mandatory sentences in the various Truth and Sentencing Acts have proven over time to be very, very focused on people who are in the lower economic groups and people of color. That's just the facts, and those are facts from the Trump administration, right? So when you arrest somebody and they have a mandatory sentence applied and the judge has no discretion, those cases overwhelmingly are applied against two groups. Bureau of Justice Statistics, if you don't believe it, but actually the current president, signed a law in his first term called the First Step Act, specifically to start to make the steps to fix that. So his administration, the first one and the second one, admits it statistically, and one of the cornerstone pieces of legislation that he takes credit for addresses this specific thing. So if they said yes to this, they'd have to disagree with it. They gotta disagree with that over there. They gotta say, hey, we can't. So they can't come out and completely disagree with it. And so if they accept it, right, and accept the penalties, then there would be no room in decision making for whether or not an officer should get X or X. The problem with that, Tom, is no one ever said in their arguments against mandatory sentencing that there shouldn't be sentencing guidelines, right? No one ever said that.
That's essentially what this is asking for, right?
Right. So that's what this would be. It would be a sentencing guideline, but for officers who committed infractions. And so a sentencing guideline, for those of you who are watching, is where if you commit, for example, if you committed a B&E and you were, let's say you're 19 years old, you commit a breaking and entering, first-time offender, and you're 35 years old and you've committed your 17th breaking and entering, you're going to get a different sentence in step one than you are in step two. And the reason being is the judge gets to take the entirety of the person's record and apply it to the sentence, right?
Considers all the evidence, right?
So normally when you're a career offender, you get the worst possible, whatever in that particular crime, you get the worst sentence. So if you're the 17-time B&E guy, you're going to get whatever the max for B&E, which I think is 5 years. So you get the 5 years, and you'd get it at the max, and you wouldn't be able to get good time and blah, blah, blah. So what we're saying is the same thing should apply in the case of an officer. The problem with that is, right, and this is where the unions really become a hindrance to their own membership, is that they don't want a review of anything in the past to apply to the new potential standards.
Right.
But you've never said that in the 6-part piece, right? We recognize that it's going to be really hard to go back in time and document all these things without criminal cases. Like, they'd have to do full-scale investigations. And it's very unlikely that would happen. Since we know that to be unlikely, in this situation, the standards that you're talking about, I assume, are to be applied going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest. Right, I was just looking for a quality policy. I just want to real quick address. There's a lot of chomping at the bit for my yelling. Weirdly.
Oh no, you were going in and out earlier.
Oh, okay. Because I am going to yell about the third thing on our agenda. I am going to yell about.
Yeah, no, the volume went up and down a couple of times. Hey, Freddie was not yelling. It's my son.
Another thing, the department does have a duty to intervene and a duty to report wrongdoing by other officers, but there's nothing attached to it. There's no oomph in it. It just says, don't, you have to do this. And it's a very simple ask, that, those that fail to intervene or fail to report are subject to the same penalties as the thing that they failed to report or intervene in. Pretty simple, right? Pretty simple. Standing idle while a resident's rights are being violated is no better than violating one's rights. That is the duty to intervene. So if it's it should be held to the same standard of accountability. This is something that comes out of Akron. They a few years ago changed 2021. They changed their city charter to require the police department within 7 days of incidents that result in fatal use of force or serious injury, that within 7 days they have to release all video evidence that they have. I waited 2 years. This is not the fault of the city. It is primarily the fault of the Attorney General's office. But I waited 2 years for video of the officer-involved shooting on Grafton Street that happened a few years back. 2 years for that video, because ironically, the attorney, the district attorney's office doesn't believe in the law. Ironically, reporting use of force incidents. Of course, if an officer uses force, they have to report that. Simple add-on to that. Officers that use force or officers that witness the use of force, the adding is officers that witness the use of force need to report as well, and lays out some criteria for what those reports need to say, rather than just report it, make a verbal whatever to your supervisor or whatever. Policy should state that use of force that violates the law may subject officers to criminal prosecution and or civil liability. That's a reality. Should just say that in policy. And then there was some stuff about how to handle, quote, First Amendment protected activity and First Amendment events, and kind of as part of that as well, specific provisions to protect journalists, as we saw in June 2020. A photojournalist was arrested for, I don't know, there was a surveillance video of it, and not sure what they did. Nobody on earth is sure what they did. And of course, the charges were dropped. And then, Sam Bishop, occasional contributor here at This Week in Worcester, was on the scene. He checked in with officers, asked where he should go to not be confused with demonstrators, but observe. They didn't give him an answer. So then he asked, what about, and pointed to a location. They said that should be fine. And by the time he got there, he was being shot at with pepper balls because they hate journalists. So that's one night, 2 incidents. I think that maybe some specific provisions for journalists might make sense, because reporting the news is kind of our job. And part of that policy is that if they detain a journalist, that the journalist has the ability to appeal to a supervisor to say, nah, and get, immediately, not go to jail, be held, miss the whole thing, which is sometimes, I've not seen that here that I'm aware of, but in other places, they just scoop up journalists just so they don't see the things that happen.
No, so I was going to say, so at a couple of the 50-51 protests, and then the the indivisible things that they had over the spring and the summer, I went to a lot of those. I covered a couple of them for This Week in Worcester, right? So I did video and I did different things, but there was a couple times when the police decided to block the ramp to the back of the common where they were making the speeches from. They didn't do this with any authority. They just told the guy who works at City Hall to put chairs in the way, right? And then when I have my press pass, so then I go up there, and of course the instead of the police arguing with you, it's the guy arguing with you, who is not has no authority of any kind. He's just the dude who puts the chairs out for the city, right? I wasn't the only one, but multiple reporters got into that situation, and twice this happened where Rob Bellata, candidate for District 2, was coming, and they had to clear the ramp anyways because handicap access, right? The law. So they moved the chairs, and we just got in anyways because it was like 5 or 6 of us both times. In both cases, I addressed the commanding officer, and the commanding officer just ignored the situation completely because the idea was to limit access, but not have anything like documenting the limiting of the access. And so in this case, you need to have a written policy. And the same thing applies to our current work at City Hall, right? So we have that little media area, which I don't want, but that's where we are right now. That's where we're stuck. Your camera's fading out. We're kind of stuck in that little 4-person box, which actually makes it harder for other people to sit there because we have this little area. And now most of the time I'm sitting there with you and Ben. Every once in a while, it's a couple of other journalists. Our chat is ridiculous. The thing is that accessing the people would probably be easier if the press area was more determined, like kind of designed, and there was a process. I will go through the process. I don't have a problem with that. I would apply for a press pass. By the way, I have looked this up. As of today, okay, there's like 216 towns and cities in Massachusetts that have a press policy, right? There's 351 cities and towns, so there's about 130 that don't. Worcester's one of them. Worcester's one of the only major cities in Massachusetts without a press policy that has a way to apply, a way to do all those things. So everything's kind of random, right? And so because there's no policy and there's nothing written, just on the city side, even before we get to Tom's proposal on the police side, what it does is it allows the city to control access, right? It just allows you to the city can just pick and choose who they want to give information to. If they're feeling a certain way, they might send the press release, or they not send the press release. Now, Tom and I have worked really hard to be able to get information like that. But we've still experienced that, when we're working a story, real stories that have been published, and, the city hasn't been forthcoming or whatever. And so the pushback, of course, is that we're just considered not to be the same as the TNG, right? That's kind of what is going on there. So what Tom is pointing out here is that for this policy would actually protect the police. It's actually a good thing for them. And the best scenario that you can point to is if you go to Los Angeles during the immigration stuff that was happening in Los Angeles, there's various videos that you can watch, both body cam versions and then a ton of different press versions, where the police just start opening up with rubber bullets on journalists, who are clearly journalists. They got yellow vests. It says press on there. They're holding a camera, and the police are just da 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 da, and nothing is done. Now, the chief of police in Los Angeles is kind of coasting on the fact that Trump is the bad guy right now, right? So there really is no way to review the police's behavior. But literally, the police are shooting at the press because they can get away with it, right? There's no real discernible policy. And it's not to say that what Tom described with Sam, we're not saying that happens every day. We're saying that shouldn't happen at all, right? That's not a complicated scenario. So that's the kind of thing where I think that it would be a reasonable written policy. The fact that we don't have it indicates that, I don't know if it indicates malfeasance or if it indicates just not ever thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, not thinking about it. I mean, maybe these types of policies aren't all that common. Again, I got them from, the federal government's agreement with Minneapolis. So, they were just, I mean, look, and there's a lot more in that document, that Barton document. I forget, say 100 and something. I forget how long it is, but it's a lot of stuff in there. That's, the stuff that I included wasn't all of it by any means. It was the stuff that I thought might be relevant here. Right.
So you see that question from Sarah, the last one there?
Well, nothing
in Worcester. In Worcester, you can just go ahead and grab yourself a press badge and a press pass and go ahead and, in fact, the press passes that we do have, they're made. They're not issued, except like the one I have for Polar Park is an issued pass. The application for the federal courthouse, so far, both Tom and I have been able to access the public records thing without having to go through the process, but there is a process for like a trial, and we've not applied yet for that. But again, there's not a ton of federal trials. The courthouse in Worcester, there's a general acceptance. So like if you wear the press pass that you have in, they'll let you in, but they will verify you. If you ask them to, there's a in the district court office, there's a place where you can fill out an application there. So if you want access to the court, you can also just go for the most part. But the thing is, if you claim press protection, you better be able to prove it. And so in today's day and age, I think a lot of people, there's more people doing journalism than, are like attached to a newspaper. And I think that there's more, I think generally there's wide latitude now for that kind of journalism because of like the, like the First Amendment. If I sit at the press bar, I don't care where you sit, Sarah. No, people sit in there all the time. It doesn't matter at all. I won't rat you out, but there are definitely people that will. There are definitely, and some of the people that will might be in the chat right now.
And just to clarify, that the policy on the journalist, at least, it says anyone that an officer knows is a journalist or should reasonably know is a journalist.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question from Kayla. Do you need a degree or certificate for journalism, or anyone can be a journalist? So the answer to the first part is you don't need a degree. If you have a degree, that's great, but it doesn't make you a journalist necessarily. What the definition is some form of like working proof that you've done journalism at some point, or that you've been hired by an organization that has a track record of having done journalism in the past. So generally what they, most of the time the press passes look for something you've published in any capacity. It doesn't have to necessarily be in a printed, we will be there, Freddie, you're way behind because, or at least I will be. I knew about it before you, buddy. But that's the kind of
I don't think I will be. I think I have a thing at the library that day. I have that.
I forget what time. It's in the middle of the day. I have multiple things that day too. Manny has a football game, and I think I'm going from the football game right to. I forget if I'm either going from there to the football game or from the football game to there that day. That day is a busy day. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, you can open a blog. I have a blog I have a Substack that you guys can all go and subscribe to if you want to. Yeah, I mean, anything with a byline, if you're trying to do it. I think journalism is the actionable effort to to write things down and to document. We can have the argument about like what kind of journalist different people are, but realistically, if you've written something and you're trying to document, that's journalism.
Yeah, I mean, and related to this policy again, it's about either they do know or they should have known.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person that they're dealing with is a journalist, right? So I thought it was a reasonable piece. I've gotten a little bit of feedback, and it was not good, as you'd imagine. So, I'm used to that at this point, from police folks.
So let me like address that again. I think the vast majority of people do not read. And I'm not saying this to be critical of like society. I'm not being like, oh, the literacy rates are low. But I think most people read a headline, and if the headline does not get them in, they either reject the piece entirely or they argue the headline. Right? So the headlines are written to get someone in, and then they don't read it. For example, I wrote an article like 3 weeks ago about the organization FIRE, which puts out a ranking of colleges' free speech efforts. Now, FIRE is an organization that has funding from the Koch brothers, right? One of their funders, and so people went like on the attack against me locally because they're like, "How can you write something about this organization?" Well, they didn't do their homework and look up all the funding sources of that organization, which is also funded by the Ford Foundation. Now, the Ford Foundation is about as far left from the Koch brothers as you can possibly be. They are in dichotomy from each other. But interestingly enough, in the lawsuits for Harvard University, which has been suing the president, for taking their funds away, for stripping their ability to have foreign exchange students, and yada yada yada. This group FIRE has filed friend of the court briefs for Harvard on multiple occasions, and has just recently joined, or says they're intending to join the ACLU, who might be suing on behalf of Jimmy Kimmel related to FCC Chairman Brendan Carr's commentary that led to him getting fired. Right. So sometimes when you assume things at the beginning on the surface level, your first 10 stages on Google, that's not how you should respond to an article. You should really read it and engage with the journalist. Now, I write things sometimes intentionally for the purpose of engaging in a conversation that provides Tom and I and Manny and the Tom on the radio, me on the radio, sometimes when I'm on TV, my overall writing. I want to engage with people because I don't want my own mind to be the only thing that provides me with information, right? Because we see clearly that when you have an echo chamber of any kind, it's
people love to believe the things they make up in their own head.
They do, and the things that I make up in my head, so you guys, so the people that have followed the show since the beginning, that I get a lot of tips from a lot of different people. And so Tom and I are working on like various stories, and I'm not going to say what they are, but there's various stories. Some of the tips are so out there that they are devastating, and they would be awesome to publish because it would prove me right. Like over and over, or prove Tom right, or those things would be awesome to publish. The problem is with journalism is that if you want to approach journalism in an ethical way, you have to be able to confirm your sources. And if you can't confirm your sources, you're basically just asking people to believe and trust in you that you think the story is right. But there's been way too many journalists in every facet of journalism, whether you're talking about whatever field it is, where people have done that and they've been wrong. And they've been wrong because sometimes people feed stories to you on purpose to get you to write something, and then you write it, and then you're sitting there hosed when the person's like, hey, and they do that now. People do, like, I sent them the thing. It was me that sent them the thing. And then it turns out that the person is wrong. And we try not to avoid that. I think that's another element of journalistic inquiry. or whatever. So I guess those things would underlie everything Tom's trying to do.
So yeah, that piece is up on the site. You can check it out and see more details about policies I included in it. They won't ever happen, but I more wrote the piece as to show the much different level of detail and how granular and detailed the kind of when this process actually plays out the right way, and not when we don't elect a president who encourages police to use more violence. And use its civil rights division of the DOJ to go after people that say things he doesn't like. When that's not in place and this process plays out normally, these deep policies are very detailed, and there's many of them in that document, which you can get from the DOJ's website. So
that's
there's that.
Kayla was just said in the chat about if you talk to journalists, they will twist the narrative. There's definitely journalists out there, and I'm not going to say anybody's names or any particular brand of journalism, that have a story that they want to write instead of letting the story come to them, right? So there's many stories that I want to write, and but I can't because I can't because
you don't have it.
They're not stories. I don't have it. I mean. And like, there's one story right now that Tom and I have an inkling of that's so big. It's unbelievable, but we can't do it until we have it because it could affect people's actual lives. No, I can't work on you getting a press pass, Fred. You got to do your own work.
You're going to have a mayor's pass soon anyway.
Yeah. Fred, you're a journalist. You got a TV show now. Fred's doing Bill Coleman's show.
Oh, nice. So next thing on the agenda is I just want to give folks this very hardworking city council that has so much on its plate. It works just so hard because remember the only thing that matters is Tuesdays at 6:30 that you show up. Anything else you do outside doesn't matter. Not relevant.
Big time.
So I just want to go back. Now, Eureka Street was May 8th, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the following city council meeting on May 13th was remote because they didn't want to have a meeting in person. And then they had a couple weeks of their budget didn't have city council, right? So the 20th and 27th, all councils still had to show up to do budget, but it was budget hearings. And then June 3rd, no meeting. So there's 3 weeks now. City council hasn't met because it was doing budget. No meeting because of Shabbat holiday. June 10th, they come back, and that's when the protest happened.
Right.
And then much of the city council spent the intervening week just crowing about how terrible these protesters are.
Oh
my God, the protest in America, how un-American.
Bad. Protesters bad. Got it. We locked that down this year.
And so the following week, rather than the previous week, rather than holding the rest of the agenda or dispatching with the rest of the agenda and then rolling it into the next agenda so you could add new items, they just reconvened the meeting before, from the week before. So there's no new items on that agenda. None. They're basically giving away a meeting.
They did.
Because they're very busy and they have a lot of things they need to do.
A lot to do. A lot of busy work. A lot of work.
And so then they finished their June 10th meeting on June 17th. After, again, protesters are the worst things in the world. And then June 24th, it was the city manager's evaluation. And then, like any time in the last decade, it was the only thing they put on the agenda was the city manager evaluation.
It was a glorified,
and it was a circle jerk, is what it was.
It was a ball washing. Yes, it was.
Yes. That was on June 24th. So they gave another meeting away right there. Right. And now we're into the summer, and they're very, very important business to take care of. Deeply, deeply important. They met once in July. They met once in August. September 2nd is the municipal election. And then here we are on September 9th. And that was actually a very long meeting.
It was.
And then on September 16th. Now, they have met. They have had real meetings. 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings at this point coming into September 16th since May 13th. After May 13th. So say since May 14th. They had 4 meetings until September 16th. Their September 16th meeting, how long was it, John?
22 minutes.
They spent more time bitching about protesters than they spent meeting at that meeting. Hands down. But they have a lot of important work to do. Now they have Rosh Hashanah this week, which is a day off. And then they go into finance. They have a joint agenda on the 30th. And then they're off the 7th. Again, a holiday. They're off the 14th, a holiday, and then they come back 21st. And then this one kills me. They're not meeting on October 28th. Why? Early voting.
So Sarah says Kate Toomey put out a statement saying they should meet throughout the summer. I want to see that. I like to see that.
Why? They apparently don't have anything to do. They had a 22-minute meeting.
Yeah.
22, because there's nothing to talk about. There's no problems in the city.
And if you go back to, if you actually go and watch the meeting, I would say like 11 or 12 minutes of the meeting are taken up from the national anthem, the pledge allegiance to the flag.
Yeah, must worship the
2 declarations, which one was Worcester Green. No, wait, bike, no walk, something, no walk week or something like that. I think that's this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then
some weird proclamation that doesn't matter.
And then another one, which was about the actually one of them was like a somewhat important one, and they kind of glossed over because this is Emergency Preparedness Month, and they brought the lady from the Salvation Army and the guy from, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I forget, but either way.
Anyways, the 2 people that actually like did something during the tornado thing, they like helped out. Red Cross, the Red Cross. So because remember, there was a fire at the it led to a fire somewhere, right? Something happened. Anyways, during the storm, something went down, and those 2 people were like the people that saved the day. They like had them come to the bar and take a picture with Kate, and that was it. There was really nothing, no, you don't even know what they did. And so that was, it blew my mind. And then they did some items. All of the items were reports from the city manager. The one report, which is about the walks and sidewalks, it's like 75 pages long. It's a massive report. And so you had 2 total comments on the whole thing, one from George Russell and one from Candy. And they were both about specific things to try to get them listed by time and then listed by district. That's it. It was nothing about like that. The fact that we have 75 pages of unfinished project, which is just wild, right? Now, the report that was generated because George and Candy 3 weeks ago hammered the DPW guy because of this what's that, Mello? Is it Mello? Is that guy's name? Roll, Stephen Roll. For the thing down at the beach by Quinsigamon, where the sidewalk is opened up. The crazy part about that is, Tom, that's not even on the report because that has nothing to do with DPW. That is utilities. So it's a completely separate report. The completely separate report. So the issue of hammering the city worker, right? And I'm, you guys know I'm critical of the city in general when it comes to them doing work or saying they're doing work, right? This guy actually isn't bad compared to other guys who do work. He's responsive. When you call him, he comes. That's that kind of guy. So that's actually decent. We can't say that. They don't have enough staff. They're like 40, 50 people down. They definitely don't have, they're under budget and all that other stuff. Your thing went unfocused again. I don't know. It tried to catch your vape. So then the the criticism that led to the report wasn't even for what the report was. And then the two people who did the criticism, the two counselors, you would think they would have like a robust series of questions related to that, but they don't. And that blew my mind. So that the other two reports, which were on the fire blankets, which is kind of a big deal, because if you're in a single family house or you're in a triple decker with no fire sprinklers because of the movement by the landlords to stop the fire sprinklers from going into those houses, the only thing that's going to stop you from dying in a fire is the fire blanket. And so Chief Dyer wrote this report about the fire blankets, of which ones to buy, which ones not to buy, which ones don't have the chemicals, which ones da 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 da. That's an important report. Nothing, Tom, not even a breath. It just got sent to committee. And then the last report, which is one that was kind of interesting, was the usage of the drones. Now, the report is going to go to committee anyways, no matter what. It's going to go to public safety. But you would think in a week where we got nothing going on, that this would be the opportunity for anybody from the city council. So this is, I want you all, everybody who says Tom and John only criticize blah, 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 blah. I'm criticizing the entire city council. Mayor Petty on down, every single one of them had an opportunity to discuss the use of the drones, good or bad. And there was not a peep of it. Not a peep. They were excited to get out of Dodge. Now, I get it. 22-minute job, that's cool. Get out of Dodge. But they should have talked about it, because on that report, one of the uses of the drones was for a flyover during the softball game at Polar Park between the police and the firefighters. Is that what the taxpayers are paying for? Is it? Should it be used? There's legitimate oversight that's needed from our city council, all 11 city councilors. Hey, no candidate has brought this up. And again, I know that people are gonna be like, oh, John loves the drones because he wrote drone stories. But the point of it is that this is legitimate public oversight that's necessary. They should not be using equipment that, by the way, the insurance policy on that equipment is ridiculous. It's way more than the actual acquisition of the items in particular. But how many different things could go wrong inside a baseball stadium with a drone? I get it. Everybody has a drone nowadays. Drones are cool, blah, 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 blah. I get it. We all understand. Drones are cool. In fact, Josh Wingell, if anybody knows him, Shape GSX and Shape GPX on all the various social medias. He's a local guy who does incredible drone photography. You should check him out. They're useful tools. However, you would want people to actually read that report and discuss it. And that the folks in our chat aren't going to discuss it, because right now they're talking about various stuff, not even listening to you and me, Tom.
Yeah, we're just a sideshow.
We're just a sideshow to the chat, apparently. That's which is great. But you would think that that's the job of the counselors, right? That's their responsibilities, is to talk about that stuff. And so they didn't even in that, and went to I'm getting messages left and right. It went to the public safety committee, and then basically we got out. And it really struck me, Tom, as this is what the voters of Worcester have kind of accepted as normal practice.
Yep.
And so the criticism really lays at the feet of the people of Worcester. I get it. I get the folks that don't want to participate because they don't think that anything can change, but it definitely can't change if you don't participate.
Yep. So yeah, 22 minutes. They're robust.
Can I point something out? So Kayla said right there, she said she didn't own a drone and she didn't even know it needed to be discussed. Exactly. Because none of the elected officials in our city have brought it up, because they don't consider it to be important, even though on the report by the way, this chief of police, most transparent chief of police in the history of the city of Worcester, hands down, this guy, he actually put that on the report. He wrote that it got used at the softball game. That's a
fact. Years past, that's just what I just knock it on the report. Absolutely correct.
He wrote it on there. He didn't have to put that on there, but he did. That's an opportunity for us to discuss. That's you know what I mean. The chief in this case is doing the chief's job, but the counselors, the whole group of them, the 10 that are present, aren't doing their job in that particular case. And I get it; it's an election year, so of course this is where oversight becomes questionable. Do you really care about oversight, or do you think that it's too tough of a subject to discuss because you don't want to be seen as criticized? And maybe if you hear all of a sudden the police unions are going to be against you because you criticized the use of the drone at the softball game, maybe. I mean, maybe that's what they're concerned about, or maybe they just don't care or even think about it, which I think is worse.
They can do whatever they want. That's been long, but the message from this council, and that really dovetails nicely into the other thing we had on our agenda here. In response to a public records request, I requested all citizen petitions rejected from the agenda, not allowed on the agenda this year. This calendar year, starting from January 1st. And to date, there are 100.
Where January 1st?
Yes, from this year, starting this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's way worse than I thought.
133 petitions from citizens have been prevented from being on the agenda by some mix of the clerk's office and primarily
the city solicitor's office.
Right, the administration official, city solicitor. And there's only, at this point, there's only one conclusion to draw, because I've been saying it for 2 years. I know councils will talk about it privately, but they have no lawyer and they refuse to hire one, so they just defer to the administration, which violates just about every principle of American civics. It's frankly un-American what they do. It is certainly a violation of the charter, and it's certainly a violation of the principle of co-equal, independent branches of government, which they just don't seem to care about at all. They just want to run a corporation out of the city council. I mean, that's been said in that city council room. We're like a board of directors. No, you're not. No, you're not, because the city's not a corporation. Idiot. Undemocratic scumbag. No, it's not.
It's wild. 133 petitions.
And so I'm going to do, as I told you I was going to yell about this, I'm going to do a written story about this, but let's get some of the real whoppers out. First of all, something that was repudiated by every city council, the only thing that the city councilors have agreed on in the last 100 years, all of them, is that the model is a strong city council model, which is not. They're lying, but nonetheless. And that originated from the former city solicitor, Mike Traynor, when he said, on the council floor, one of the most amazing statements in American political history. It's so stupid. The city, when the council requests an ordinance, it's the city manager's option to deliver it. No, it's not. That's a capital L lie. This charter, as a piece of garbage document that is, specifically says you have an executive branch and a legislative branch. The legislative branch does laws and stuff. Which are ordinances. So no, the city manager can't stop the council from doing the one job it's supposed to do. That's moronic. It's a lie. You're an idiot if you think that.
So Sarah asked, is that more than previously? And the answer to that, Sarah, is actually
absolutely.
It is definitely, but also City Clerk Nico Vangeli, I think in the June meeting, the one that was after the protest, he said on the floor, you can go back and watch it. So that's, I don't know what date that is, time, the June 10th or I think it's the June 10th meeting, or June 17th. June 17th, which was the continuation of June 10th. At that meeting, he said on the floor that...
Tell me what to do on my own show.
Huh? He's not yelling. On the floor, he said that they have had 4 to 5, according to Nico's words, you can go watch it yourself on the city website, 4 to 5 more times volume of petitions that they've had to handle than they've ever had to before. These are the ones they're referring to. So what happens is the petition comes into the clerk's office, they bring it to somebody before it even goes to the city solicitor. They either go to I don't know who, I don't even understand the process. He tried to explain it, but basically, I think certain counselors get shown this before, maybe the mayor's office, I don't know. And someone says, hey, you should take that to the solicitor. And then that number has increased 4 to 5 times for him this particular city council session.
Yeah,
so that's one.
The spurious legal arguments they use are stunning.
It is stunning. Then the second one was at that same meeting, the city solicitor, Kula Kanis, I'm probably saying it wrong, Kulkanis, she said that they are handling, that is becoming one of the biggest parts of their office's job related to the city council meetings, is handling the interaction between the clerk's office and them. So they get the particular petition, they look at it. I think, I think it would be hard for them not to look at certain people who file a lot of petitions. That's illegal. It doesn't matter if the person has filed 75,000 petitions. They still need to have all their petitions taken seriously as a citizen. That's the function. That's the current version of our government, and that's what is allowed. It doesn't matter if Councilor Bergman has this plan to eliminate that completely, which it seems that he does. But right now, as is, the rules are as is. And they affirmed at some point to keep it going the way it is when they voted down Nico's idea to change Rule 2. Right? Is it Rule 2 or Rule 12?
I don't know.
One of the rules, Rule 2 or Rule 12, that is applied to the petition process. So I would say the number getting rejected has increased dramatically. It's not proportional at all. It's dramatic. It's at an insane level. And it's because this city council, this 11 folks, these 2 years have kind of committed to, as a body, and maybe you can argue with individuals, but as a body, a less transparent, more speech denying, more citizen denying process by giving the city manager's office even more oversight into what is allowed on the agenda and what isn't allowed on the agenda. And so,
which they are just making up at their whim.
Yes.
Just as they go along, they're just making it up. Not don't. You've already got your hand slapped for for perspective. What do they call it? What was the phrase the ACLU used? Position or viewpoint discrimination. That's what it was. Viewpoint discrimination. And they're just doing more of it. They heard that thing, which they disgraced themselves with. And then they just think it's over now and they can just get to start over. Meanwhile, the city council has been hearing these petitions for hundreds of years, literally.
Yeah. And the thing is that, so you look to that 22-minute meeting, and it's not to say it all should be citizen petitions, but I think what they're afraid of doing, Tom, and I think that, Sarah's kind of scratching at it a little bit with the idea of maybe there's an individual person that they don't want to deal with. It doesn't matter if there's an individual person that they don't want to deal with. That doesn't matter. What they need to do is they need to actually come up with a process that the city council decides. You know what? You know where that process is? It's in the freaking charter. It already exists. So they actually, the chairperson, the mayor, could, if he wanted to, create the same thing that he does with the current city council schedule. He has power over the schedule. He can schedule anything he wants at any time. If he thinks citizen petitions are taking up too much time during the regular council meeting, he could schedule a special session, maybe once a month, maybe every 2 months, where you just heard citizens petitions. There are 1,000 ways to handle this, but the way they've chosen to handle this is to put the city at risk of litigation, because it's the only reason this hasn't happened, that it's gone to court yet, is because someone hasn't done a comprehensive review, which then falls to the fourth estate, the press. And in this case, Tom is doing that comprehensive review. That review, once completed, is going to probably engender somebody the chance to take it and go to court with it, because you're going to see all these things. And I'll tell you this right now, 8 of my own petitions were denied, and I will happily sign on to any lawsuit that anybody wants to go for. But it's a resources issue. It always comes down to resources. The reason why Holden is kicking the city's butt in court is because Holden has decided to commit its resources to the lawsuit against the city. That's why they've won every single step of the way. Since 2013, they have been winning this case for 12 years straight, undefeated Holden, right? And I'm not necessarily want Holden to win, but the fact is that
they're going to. The reality is they're going to.
It looks not only that they're going to, it looks like this appeal is abject, utter waste of money.
Yes.
And here's a perfect example. Recently, in response to some of the stuff in our own chat and citizens doing work, the city decided to start donating yellow trash bags to certain agencies in the city that then distribute those trash bags to people who need them, right? So that's been going on since the beginning of August. So several organizations have been getting those bags. The estimated cost for that, according to a question that George Russell asked, is about $12,000. So that was about the cost of about $12,000 to give away those bags for free. Okay. You ready for this? Are you ready for this? The estimated cost of the appeal is $1 million. So that's just the appeal to that. Doesn't mean if we win or lose. That's just if we appeal that the city is going to have to pay the legal fees. Here's the thing about appeals to the SJC, and you can look this up on if you go to mass.gov/SJC, and you can look up the cost structure in a municipality versus municipality lawsuit. It doesn't matter if Worcester wins. If Worcester wins, they still have to pay their own legal fees. That is the way of our state. It is what it is. Holden would not be responsible for Worcester's legal fees. They would only be responsible for their own. And in this case, so we would end up spending $1 million plus whatever we've already spent on the lawyers up until this point. Holden will never have to pay for Worcester's legal fees. That's out the window. That's the structure of our state. That is a fact. So they're going to spend $1 million hoping that the best possible result is it gets overturned. And yeah, exactly, Fred. They spend $1 million, Kayla, $1 million of the taxpayers' money on a bet. It's a bet. The chances of them winning, Tom, we've looked. This is something we've talked about. I'm not the only person doing this now. There's all kinds of journalists covering this. The chance of them winning, overturning an appeals court, a Massachusetts appeals court decision in the SJC, a municipal related case, is less than 10%.
Yep.
So they're spending $1 million on a 1 in 10 chance, or a 10 in 100 chance. However you want to look at it, that's a significant and serious risk. When if you just took $100,000, you could probably pay for 10 months of free trash bags for all the folks in the city that work at agencies that have access to people that really don't have that kind of money. That is a matter of value setting. So Worcester has determined. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, going back 5 minutes ago when you started talking, I would just like to say to future Mayor Nathan, I will quote the immortal Al Swearingen from the show Deadwood. Don't tell me how to talk in my own place. There was an F word in there. I omitted it. Another thing that we saw a whole bunch of, which maybe irritates me more than this spurious legal argument that somehow the city manager has the discretion to allow the council to do its job. Ridiculous. But what irritated me more was there was several instances of, you can't petition for this, take it to a city councilor. They're petitioning the city council, stupid! That's what they're doing! What do you mean? I'm sorry, we have jobs. We can't go chase around city councilors. That's why we put in a petition, like a local government.
And I
think they're in the United States Congress.
Yeah, I think
they're not important.
I recently put in a petition and was told that exact thing. So the last petition
That's
that I had,
stupidity. That you're asking with the petition, you're asking the council,
and they denied it, and then told me to ask. Told me to ask a counselor, and then they gave me an email that sends an email to your district counselor. So I emailed my district counselor, Louis Ojeda, and then I actually spoke with him in person. He has not responded. It's been about a month. So, I mean, and listen, and I like Louis, but that's the
He's got
fact.
other stuff to do. Like he forgot whatever. I don't understand why you need to go like get a counselor. This is this like elitist view of democracy, if you could even call it that at this point, where you're gated by somebody collected 300 signatures and get on the ballot and won, so they can put whatever the hell they want on the ballot on the agenda. Apparently, is the rule. But some people that went and got 1,500 signatures for one item got rejected. This is a very elite, hierarchical. We're much better than you. Go to hell. You don't get access to our club. Type of crap is what it is.
Also, I would point this out, and I know that in the article you'll probably bring this up, but Councilor Bergman, in his impassioned speech for his items that would limit petitioning even more, said that would never happen, and that all of the councilors would respond to all of the citizens of the city, and that would never happen. He would never ignore anybody or anything like that. I followed up with an email to all the at-large councilors, and they have not responded yet.
Yeah. So let me just.
I want to say all of them. None of them. Not one of the at-large councilors has responded at this point. All 6, including Mayor Petty, to my petition.
Well, and let's really let's understand what's actually going on here. Okay, it's that they don't want to be asked hard questions. They don't want to be forced to respond to hard questions. So if you have to bring it to a counselor, then hopefully, basically, let's just be honest. Hopefully, you bring it to a tell, and then she'll put it on, and then they can beat the crap out of her for the next 6 months for it.
Right.
That's what's really going on. It's electioneering from inside the city council chamber.
Yeah, I agree, and I will say that's my major criticism is that there is only one city council who will just probably put on any citizen's petition, even if she doesn't like them, and that is a tell. I would say that the other city councilors will make decisions based on voting, based on potential impact, and yada yada yada.
If you're a donor, if you're a police union head.
Yeah, and that is not what the charter calls for. The charter calls for an open forum where we can put in petitions on Tuesday nights. That's what it says.
And this is not even remotely a criticism of the people that brought that petition. Sometimes we'll criticize those people. This isn't that in this case. But there was a petition in this council brought last December, which asked the federal government to break the law.
Yes.
And it was not only allowed on the agenda.
Yes.
It was then sent to committee.
Yes.
And it got a hearing about it. The petitioners had to withdraw it, even though you can't. The city council, well outside the city council's purview, to require the federal government to break the law. So again, this is this elitist. We're better than you. Your social status or your political status is what is paramount to your ability to petition your government. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
But and the thing is that there's a presupposition in here, and that from most city councilors, and I can't say all of them, but most city councilors take the presupposition that the vast majority of people don't care because they don't speak up loudly. And that's not the case at all, because you have multiple reasons for why you don't care or don't participate in the process. One group of people might not care because they actually don't know what's happening. They really are disconnected from social media, regular media, all kinds of stuff, and they really don't have any idea what's going on. They get up, they go to work, that's their life, and that's fine. That's normal, and I'm not going to say that person needs to necessarily engage, but there's a big group of people that just don't care. There's another group of people that do care very much, and it affects their ability to live, but they're tired. They're tired of getting beat down. They're tired of getting told no. They're tired of getting saying, especially from Democrats, "Hey, we'll fix it eventually." They're tired of hearing that, and so then they don't participate at a much lower level. And there's no reason to hide it, but that group of people is made up of the poor and people of color. That's that. It's just the facts. It is what it is. And then I would even say within that group, the majority of that group is women. right? So because women are tired of being told what to do and how to say, and I get it, and everything that they're saying is right. They're tired of this this different set of standards that apply to people depending on what they look like or whether or not they have what they have between their legs, and that's just the way it is, but it shouldn't be. And so when you try to make even a little adjustment to that, the councilors just assume, hey, nobody cares, no one's going to vote, so we're just going to let it happen the way it happens.
Right, and I mean they don't want anybody to vote, so it works out well for them.
Don't want women to vote. They don't, because if women vote, it's not a good thing.
And then we also have like a bunch of stuff that's a bunch of them that are it's not really legitimate. Don't get me wrong. Some of them like there's a bunch of Rule 30 rejections because it's something that's been heard within 9 days, and they're not all crazy. But there's also there was like a series of a few people that were trying to petition to have land sequestered for conservation.
Right.
And it was like that's the function of the city manager and some other whatever it was, right? I forget exactly what it was. Some other regulatory agency. But don't we see orders from councils all the time requesting city manager to do something, requesting city manager somewhere in some department? So that's what they're asking for. Like, do you have to be a lawyer to write? You have to write exactly the right kind of language to petition your local government in a city of 200,000 people, 205,000 people? Like, what is this, New York City? And you get 10,000 petitions every week? Like, it's just ridiculous. People got to work. They don't have time to chase you around or write the petition 17,000 times. So, it's up to your standards. They're trying to ask their elected government stuff.
Yes.
The other thing is, you can't petition for, only councilors can ask for information or for reports. So they're asking their councilors to ask for it, stupid. It's a bullshit game to try to prohibit people from participating in government. And I'll say it again, it's disgusting behavior. Disgusting.
And at this point, the city council has to take responsibility for that. In the case of the city manager denying the land conservation things, here's the amazing thing. City manager Augustus just did this. Literally just did this from a petition. If anybody who remembers the renovations at Green Hill Park, where the new community gardens are going to be. If you remember, the family that donated Green Hill over a long period of time, that was held in a trust. That particular piece of land, which if you go up Green Hill Parkway and you drive in there, it's to the left before you go down to the zoo, right? So that little area that's up the top was behind the battlements. That part of land is still kind of, it's part state, part federal, part town, but it was still part owned by this family trust. Okay. To acquire that land, there's a process that the city manager does have authority over. That's true. And the reason it happened when Ed Augustus was city manager just 4 or 5 years ago was because of a petition from a citizen that was accepted by the city solicitor, who was the city solicitor for this city manager, at least for the first year or so. So the reasoning was changed, and now the city manager has a new power that he didn't have before, which is
they just invented it out of thin air.
Invented a completely brand new power. Now, sometimes I know that city solicitor Cal Kunis watches our show, right? I know this because she's made comments to me.
I went through 406 pages of petitions today, and I am pissed off.
Yeah, and so I would point that out, that the record does not support this newly found and invented legal position where the city manager is the city manager the corporation's soul? Is he like the bishop or the pope? He owns the city of Worcester, and he can just
it's a dictatorship, and they just wave their hands and create new laws or new rules. So the city council can't do its primary job without the permission of the city manager, which is ridiculous. If you can't ask city council anything,
you can't.
Only councils can ask for information. That's why someone is petitioning the city council to ask for the information. They can vote. They can decide if they want the information or not. They're the deciders. That's why we elected them.
Okay.
It's infuriating how much these people just hate democracy. It's infuriating.
They do. And when you ask them this question directly, and I've asked many of them this question, they don't care. The majority of the councilors do not care. They do
At
not.
all. Because they want to know, because this is good for them, because they want to be protected from taking tough votes.
That's right.
So that the whole campaign can just be like, I support the police.
By the way,
Even the lazy ones.
just to hark back to the 22-minute meeting, if you look at the schedule coming up, there's no really tough votes that will take place until after the election.
No. All that important business.
So Mayor Petty,
try to put a petition in for the next meeting. Good luck.
So it's good. And so you know what? Let me respond real quick to Fred. Fred, this is why the city is the way it is because of statements like that. I think that Tom should be passionate about this issue because literally it's unconstitutional, abject nonsense. And it's because of that attitude right there, which I know you're trying to play like some kind of fun game with the chat, right? But that's exactly why people get away with stuff all the time, including abject corruption in our city. I will point out that in one of the victory laps that the city manager and Peter Dunn love to take is the clawback of the TIF for Unum. Tom, do you remember what originated that clawback?
They left the building.
They left the building.
Abandoned ship.
And a person came to city council that was an employee of Unum and brought it up on the city council floor. Hey, did you realize they just left this building completely empty? And then all of a sudden, the operations started going, and then the city councilors got involved, and it was a big conversation. But it was originated from a citizen of the city of Worcester bringing it up. They weren't even going to say nothing. It doesn't matter the fact that, by the way, Unum hadn't done its due diligence throughout the entire process of the TIF, let alone at the end. But the fact of the matter is that that's part of our government is having a citizen. We don't have to stay calm. We don't have to. That's the kind of thing.
Don't tell me how to act. Yeah, what are you, my daddy?
Yeah. At this point, I'm just going to ignore everything that he says now because it's just him. Like, I think he's trolling at this point. So just ignore him and he'll go away. This is why people talk to you less and less, Fred. It's because of stuff like this.
One petition is about the new security force, and it says they hired the new security force. They're paying them around $28 an hour. Nobody knows who their boss is, how to make a complaint, if they have police power, what are the training requirements. Nobody knows anything about this. So it asks that the city manager make this information public, right? So it's not worded right, but it's basically asking the city council to ask the city manager for a report on this stuff. But that's outside of the city council's purview. Wait a minute, what? To get information? We can't know what they're paying people and what the process is? Or no, you can't ask if you're a resident because you're just a lowly peasant and we don't care about you at all.
Not only that, though, in this case, there's this rule that's been used against me when I was the chair of the Cable Commission, and then it's been used several times to prevent accountability over the police department. And there's this idea that the city council is never allowed to ask anything about employees of the city. That's never what the rule was intended.
That's exactly right.
It's never what the rule was intended to be. It was supposed to prevent the city council from influencing hiring and firing. So a city councilor can't go on the floor of the council and use a bully pulpit to say to Eric, you need to fire, so-and-so, or you need to hire so-and-so. And the whole idea of that is to prevent a city councilor from doing that kind of stuff on the council floor. Of course, it doesn't prevent them from doing it.
But city council is getting their spouses on the boards. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, their relatives all over the city. Doesn't matter behind closed doors. But the whole point was to do that. But it was never intended that the city council could never ask any questions about the city manager inventing an entire new division of the city. Inventing a new division of the city. Rolling out a plan for the new division of the city that's never been discussed, never been brought up, never been talked about in the city ever, and then employing it and spending money for it It's not in the budget process. Nothing. There was no transparency of any kind related to that decision. By the way, I don't have a problem with security guards at City Hall. That's normal in public buildings. I don't even have a problem with the metal detectors. It really doesn't bother me that much. That's completely normal in today's world. What bothers me is that the city manager did it by fiat. Boom, this is the way it is. Suck it up.
Another one saying, I don't think this is true, but the petition claims that the city hasn't released police misconduct information for 3 years. I don't believe that's true because I've gotten plenty of it. But nonetheless, it then says, it argues that the city manager has breached his contract and should be considered for termination. And the response is, the city council doesn't produce those records, so your request is not appropriate for the city council. The city council hires the city manager. Of course it's appropriate. They cannot like it. They can file it. They can throw it in the waste paper basket. But, that's their decision because they were elected, Madam City Solicitor. Elected.
And so this is the problem is, again, if there was a group of people that had the resources to push back on this legally, the city would lose. Tom, the city would lose in court.
What they're doing is, and let's now. I'm getting madder the more I talk. What they're really doing is preying on a poor community that says anybody that's been in office has been. This community has been poor. It has been the seventh poorest community of all cities in Massachusetts since the beginning of time.
Pretty much
since Tim Murray was mayor, and since Joe Petty became mayor to present. So please go on about all your accomplishments, by the way, because you better the economic vitality of the people of the city hasn't changed ever.
Right.
But let's keep doing things the same way. Maybe some year you'll bring some jobs in here. I don't know. Maybe stop underfunding education or spending up to the dime that they tell you to spend so you can hire 15 more cops who are already over the national average per capita.
So real quick to connect to the national jobs report, just real quick. So you'll see that in the city manager's state of the city, he claimed 14,000 new jobs. That's a claim that he made. Okay. So that is a projection based on these numbers that they have coming in from these various companies. And it's actually from two companies that do payroll, ADP, and I forget the other one, it's like FinRoll or something. But anyways, there's two main companies that do payroll in Massachusetts. Okay, so those two companies, let's put them to a side for a second. The federal jobs report, which comes out quarterly, right? And you hear it all, and everybody's like, the country added this many jobs, it added this many jobs. Usually 2 months after the report comes out, the actual numbers come in, and we just had the largest job loss in 40 years, right? Not since the 80s have we had this many jobs lost in a quarter. 900,000 jobs were lost in a quarter, which is very rare. Normally, we gain jobs by what's it called? The natural weighted mean, which is more people, the population increases, more jobs naturally increase, right? But we actually lost jobs, which is not a good sign for the economy. It's usually a very, very bad sign. And almost 1 million jobs is a lot of jobs lost. Okay. So the reason why that number usually comes out later is because it's not convenient politically. It's not convenient. They get to say, we did this many jobs. Look at it. Yay. So the city manager is using the same methodology, right? And it's in his report. We use the same standard that the federal government uses. So they said 14,000 jobs. However, the city has no legal obligation to release the actual numbers. They have no obligation. And
that's a transparency.
There's no specific way to track it unless the city and the city's data partners track that number. So if nationally, proportionally, if you were to take that 910,000 jobs, it was a negative from the initial claim of 40,000 gained. It's $950,000 change. It's possible the city of Worcester lost jobs. But we can't know that because they don't have an obligation. The federal government has a legal obligation because of the open market and the stock exchange. This is related to, as Tom has brought up before, corporations' job is to make money for their shareholders.
Investors, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why that report has to come out. It's part of the law. We're kind of lucky that law is there because they didn't repeal it when they repealed part of the glass law. When Fink Barney. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Anyways, when you get into the financial regulations laws, they've gone back and forth. They've changed it a bunch of times. But in this case, we've been lucky to have that report. But no state has to tell you the report, and no city has to tell you the report, just the federal government. So there's no way to know if those jobs were local or not. But my question to the chat and my question to our watchers, do you feel like everybody's working?
Well, I mean, most people work out of here. You know, they work outside the city. I mean, look, most of the city payroll, the people live outside the city.
Yeah.
So
that's
I hope you're really excited about paying your property taxes, or paying property tax through your rent, to pay property tax in other municipalities. Isn't that wonderful?
by the way, it just came to me, Tom. I don't know how many employees of the city of Worcester live in Holden, but
so it was 2003 numbers I got. It was like 54. I think it was 54%. Going off memory, it's been a minute since I looked at it. It was 54% of city workers lived inside the city, but 56% of payroll went to residents outside the city. So that means the higher up you are up the food chain, the more likely you are to live outside the city. Now, I wonder why that is.
Oh, no. And of course, city manager Augustus never lived inside the city. That was always a fun thing. The reason I'm saying this is that if there's enough people that are city employees that are paying property taxes in Holden, it's possible that the city of Worcester itself is paying for the legal bill of Holden to sue the city of Worcester for 12 years.
So, I'll have a broader breakdown of this stuff in writing, but I got to tell you, in case you haven't noticed, it really pissed me off how ridiculous it is.
It is.
Like, you've got to be a lawyer, and then, if you word something the wrong way, we'll find a way to reject it. And then some people seem to get some help, and I don't know how that is determined who gets help and who doesn't. But then, then we'll just tell you, you're a city councilor who probably has a full-time job because they're only part-time. Go chase them around and try and get them to do it. Like, gross, disgusting.
So, by the way, on a couple of my petitions of the ones that I had rejected, I got responses from the deputy clerk, AJ Pottle, and he said you should write it like this, and then it'll probably get on the agenda. And I did. So that happened to me a couple times where and so this is not a criticism of the clerk's office.
No, look, I'm pretty certain that in most of these cases, they're caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, they're being forced to do this by the policy of both the city council and the city manager to push them on to the city solicitor, who's then making these clearly unconstitutional,
disgusting decisions.
Yeah, it's 100% wrong, and it really comes down to. And by the way, for I know someone said what matters is the data. That's true. It is what matters. The data shows that in almost every other municipality that has had citizens lawsuits sue in this state, just in this state, related to this kind of thing, it has led to the municipality's government being found at fault every single time. It's just consistently that the Massachusetts courts, at least, find the municipalities to be wrong in suppression of speech. And by the way, in some of the cases, if you go and look at them, I think the speech is odious. The speech that was wanted is terrible. It's horrible. Some of it's racist. Some of it's just disgusting and hate speech, and all this kind of stuff. And it was allowed by the liberal court, the liberal court system in Massachusetts. They allowed this, including, by the way, the petition from the local Republican city committee to change the policy of Worcester, which was voted down 11-0 by the city council. Good, and one of the most passionate speeches ever by Donna Colorio, voted down stopping and asking, having the police ask people for their citizen papers, which of course we saw play out in real time on Eureka Street. What that looks like when people have to do that, right?
That was when, and just as a side note, that was when the city council, inside a 48-hour period, completely changed its rules about what to accept.
True. It was true. And so now they let that petition, that the wild part of that situation is, even though that had nothing to do with anything pertinent to the city council, nothing, they let that thing onto the agenda, right? They made the decision, let it onto the agenda. And then they all made their speeches about the city loves, people of different backgrounds, and everybody got to make their 10, 15-minute speech, and they suspended. I was there. They suspended the rules that night. People went on and on and on. And now when you look back on it, it was a show, because that petition never could have been upheld anyways, ever. It was illegal from the jump. In that case, the city solicitor's office said, yeah, this is fine. This is okay.
It's okay. The U.S. Constitution doesn't explicitly say that we don't create classes of citizens, that there's one class that's called citizens.
It's wild. It's wild. And so that was like, and then of course the one that Tom brought up with it, where it was asking the city manager and the city solicitor to tell the federal government to change its own law. That one was allowed to go have a hearing. People talked about it on the floor. It went from the floor to a committee. It had a hearing at the committee. And it's my opinion, Tom, that unless that person had withdrawn it, the public safety committee would have advanced it to the floor of the city council, and they would have had a further discussion on that petition, because that petition, politically speaking, helps that particular counselor. And so then that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, they're playing games with our government about how we want it to be. They're picking and choosing when they decide they want it to be there. And because we have no mechanism as a people to fight back other than voting, and because people are so apathetic because they feel abused, they don't want to vote, they know that there's nothing's going to happen unless people get up and vote and go out and vote, which is why we encourage it so much. I don't care who you pick. I don't care who you pick at all. Just vote. Show them your feet, man. Now, of course, do I have a particular result that I would prefer? Sure. That's 100%.
Anybody else?
To be honest with you, if we woke up after the election and there was 11 new city councilors, I'd be stoked. Well, 10. So I'm sorry, 10. Gotta keep. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. We gotta keep Patel. And you know what? I don't care who gets back to it. It doesn't matter to me at this point. I will take Patel and 10 new other people, and I would be happy with the results of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on Patel, but I mean, even if I didn't agree with her politically, just been attacked inside the council.
Yeah.
Police unions releasing press releases, campaigning for charges against her. Meanwhile, if your house burns down, who do you want as a city councilor? Not anybody else.
Right. And that kind of stuff is on there. That kind of, I would say that is the 95% of what of why I would want her to win, is because they're going all out to stop her. Public fundraising from multiple sitting at-large councilors. You have at-large councilors like Mo Bergman in City Hall attacking her on a regular basis, openly naked political attacks on the floor on a regular basis directed at one district council. We have literally this year we have an at-large race where two of the sitting at-large councilors, in Kate Toomey and Mo Bergman, are running against Patel, who's a district councilor. But that is what they're doing. They are openly running against Patel. And that is enough. Enough is for me. That I want that person, because that's not fair. And the resources that are being gathered against her are unfair. And even recently, Maureen, by the way, remember the rule. If Maureen ever announces for mayor, John runs for mayor immediately. And my entire campaign is, I'm against Maureen. The entire campaign. I will not do anything but wear a T-shirt that says I'm against Maureen if Maureen ever runs for mayor. But she's recently she's running for school committee at large, and she's criticizing the District 5 councilor. What is that? What is that? What is going on in the city? That's your approach? It's lame.
Yeah, the woman from the let's throw as many kids out of school as humanly possible caucus, who's running on school safety, but has basically platformed a pedophile for 30 years.
And the folks that are against our platform on a regular basis, that come out against us, they'll be like, oh, you're just for this one person. No, you don't see what. So, and I always ask them this question: what happens if, and it actually happened in the last election, what happens if a panel of people decided to get together and run as a group and run against one person as a group? You were hugely critical of that in the last election, when it was the progressives who decided to run together as a group and were campaigning together and were door knocking together, all that stuff, right? And specifically, they were running against two sitting city at-large councilors, in Donna Calorio and Mo Bergman. That's a fact. And all you heard on all the local media was how that's terrible. How can they be running against them? That's not how the city was supposed to be. But crickets when it's directed at one person.
I got one more I want to bring up. This was the petition's primarily about it's kind of lengthy and they wrote too much, right? But again, they're not lawyers. They're residents of the city who have jobs and stuff to do. But it's about specifically Needles in Castle Park.
Oh yeah, I know this petition. Yeah,
it was signed by 259 residents.
That's right,
including you. Maybe that's why I didn't get on the agenda.
Maybe.
And there's a lot of stuff here, but it's primarily about Needles in Castle Park. The response was, sorry, I'm scrolling through all the names to get to the response because 259 people signed it. Two similar items were on this was a May 9th email. Two similar items were on the May 6th City Council meeting. Given under suspension from Councilor King, request Assistant Commissioner of Public Works and Parks look to the National Recreation and Parks Association for referential purposes to consider devising a comprehensive response to substance abuse crisis. What's that? That is not Needles in Castle Park.
No, it has nothing to do with Castle.
Order of the mayor. Provide City Council with a report concerning ordinances and policies other communities have regarding needles stemming from substance abuse. And then another order from Councilor Ojeda, request Standing Committee on Public Health and Human Services hold a meeting, consider devising a comprehensive plan to address substance abuse. Nothing about Castle Park is in any of those items, but it can't be on the agenda because those items are too alike. Like, the whole subject of substance abuse is apparently one thing.
When this particular petition was asking for specific help, by the way,
for a specific area, for a specific park.
Yes.
And they went, oh, these three other things were said about substance abuse. Well, I have a question then. Why doesn't Rule 30, 90 days, how do we have three things on the same subject then? I mean, they don't even try.
It's just it's poor application of the law. And again, no resources.
Call it what it is. Lies.
Yeah, but there's nobody other than us and people who listen to us, and maybe Bill Shaner and his group at Worcester Sucks, and maybe some other activists on the internet that are even questioning this. In this case, that petition was led by Victor Cruz and Nayari Veras. And I know Maria was a part of that. I signed on to that petition. That petition, they ended up doing the work themselves. And then the city decided to do this clean month thing in August, the clean up the city thing. And
because nobody else would do it, of course.
The thing that they were doing, what this group was asking for, and they were asking for something in the immediacy because, frankly, folks, when there are a bunch of people suffering from substance abuse in our city, and there are a ton of needles in the city, and in the wintertime, those needles end up in the snow, and you don't see them as easily as you see them in the springtime when they're starting to come out and people are cleaning. You see more and more and more of them. So they've accumulated over the winter months. That's a fact. We all know this. It's a logical, basic understanding. And what Victor was trying to address was support for dealing with it immediately, not waiting 6 months, because the substance abuse crisis, those 3 orders, that's not going to get solved in 10 days. What they wanted was trash bags, which, by the way, the city ended up doing anyways, but they took all the way till August to do it. In the
And they took
meantime,
credit for it.
and then they took credit for it. Meanwhile, those groups spent their own money and their own time and their own resources, and there was a ton of citizen-led, non-city cleanups all year long. And the city, this is what really gets me upset, is the city manager loves to give himself a pat on the back, a gold star, a thank you very much, I did this. But he hates helping out with regular people and celebrating the regular people of Worcester. Hey, if you go to Mechanics Hall and you get a big fancy Schwindig, man, they'll be there with shiny shoes on and fancy dresses. If it's at Tuckerman Hall or if it's at Hanover, they'll be there, man. If it's a fancy event, they'll be there. But if it's the hardworking vast majority of the people of the city of Worcester, they don't want to be there because they don't want to be associated with us, because they consider themselves to be better and they consider themselves to be in charge. And they really have, by policy, told you what they want. They want us all to leave.
Here's true. Here's another one.
Us all to leave.
Somebody proposes consideration of a land value tax rather than the way we tax now.
Yep.
Now, what's the response? Well, taxation is the purview of the state. Well, right. But one, the city council can discuss or send a committee to discuss or whatever it wants to do if this is worth considering, and if it's worth considering to the point of a home rule petition. That's a conversation they can have. Nope, because the solicitor dictated so. I mean, everyone I look at pisses me off. It's really unbelievable. But the council's too busy. They've met 4 times in 3 months and had a 22-minute meeting last time. Too busy doing the important work of the city.
Again, this entire thing could be solved constitutionally by the charter, by the mayor. And in my opinion, Mayor Petty is in charge. He sets the schedule. He sets the agenda. He really dominates. He really does have responsibility for this. And I know he's running on the I get things done and I do things right. But the mayor has led the city council into not doing their job when it comes to citizens' petitions. It is what it is. You can't say it any other way. It is Mayor Petty's responsibility. He's the leader of the city council, and he sets the agenda. And that it comes down to he does not want those things on the agenda. And so he pawned it off on the city manager. And the city manager, hey, if you gave me $330,000 a year, I'd probably do what you told me to do too.
Oh, here's another good one. Here's another good one. So different versions of people asking for the city council to create policy to govern itself for misconduct type of stuff. We all know where that originated. No reason to go over that again. And that's the rules of the purview of the city council. That's why they're petitioning the city council. It's like talking to the wall. It's like the circular logic. I want city council to do something, but that's within the purview of the city council. Well, that's why I'm asking. What are we doing? Only a lawyer can come up with this crap. Seriously.
I'm with it.
All right. I don't want to talk about this thing. I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah. So to answer everybody's questions about The Walking Dead, The Walking Dead is shutting down downtown tomorrow. So Franklin Street, in front of Main Street, in front of City Hall, part of Foster Street, going all the way down to the AC Marriott. There's a bunch of areas downtown that are going to be shut down from 5 a.m. until 7 p.m. at night, starting tomorrow. Okay, so if you have any business downtown, don't do it. Just don't do it. Or if you need to do it, get there early because there will be no points of car access. So if there's parking that you need to get to, you might not be able to get there. It just might not happen. If you want to go to the sets, there are points set up around the perimeter of the set where you can go and watch them film it. I'm gonna tell you that it's not as glamorous as you think it is. You're going to be pretty far away from the sets because there's a very large group of actors because of the zombies, and so you're going to be pretty far back. But you should be able to take some pictures and be able to see some cool stuff from a distance. So my recommendation is near the Denholm building on one side, or by Mechanics Hall on the other side of Main Street. The back end of the Common, so where the M&T Bank is, near the T&G building, that end, and then some of the side streets, you're going to pick and choose. But they do have a ton of security. There'll be a ton of police down there. So last time a couple of people got arrested for trying to get onto the set. So just be careful and just ask, what you're doing. If you have a camera, most likely they'll let you take pictures. It's not a secret set. It's zombies. They're not really worried. It's not that kind of movie. It's not that kind of movie. All right, Tom.
Let's not talk about this anymore. You got anything else?
Yeah, it's the best time of the show. So it's the most favorite.
Time? Let's go to John's favorite part of the show.
Okay. So proof, by the way, that the crowd, the throngs, the masses that watch the This Week in Worcester podcast. By the way, if you're not sharing the This Week in Worcester podcast, even after it's live and over, you're not a real fan. So right now, everybody get on your little phone and hit the little share button and share that thing to your feed. Get it right now. Share it to your feed. I want all those clicks and likes. That's how Tom gets paid. We got to keep Tom in fresh black t-shirts. Okay. So we need more money in for Tom to take care of. I got him so good. Okay. So anyways, this comes from one of our loyal watchers. I will not mention their name because I don't want other loyal watchers to get jealous. Okay. But the Tom's favorite thing of the week question is brought to you by one of our longtime watchers. And they say, let me read it to you. Who, Tom Marino, is your most favorite city councilor ever? Not due to beliefs, but who did you like?
Oh.
Mine's easy. It's easy. It's a layup.
Yeah, I mean.
Your thing just clicked out.
Oh, what is with this? Too much yelling. Maybe Fred's right. And all we do is change the resolution and it comes back. It's stupid. I'm gonna have to go with Constantina. I'm gonna have to go with Connie Lukes because you didn't have to ask her what she thought she'd tell you. She didn't hide. I disagree with her on a whole host of things. I do bow when I see her though, because I am greeting royalty, after all. But I disagree with her on a whole host of things. But you didn't have to ask her because she'd tell you, and she'd be happy to tell you, and she'd tell you, with her chest. And I, if to go historical, if you will, I don't think it's right to name somebody that's sitting now. So I'm gonna go with Connie Lukes.
You're gonna go with who?
Connie Lukes. Constantina.
Okay, so I would say all time. This is a very difficult question. So Connie Lukes was on my list, but District 4 guy, longtime District 4 guy. I guess I would I might have to go with Barbara.
That's the other option. Yeah.
So only because she used to yell at Tim and she used to yell at them all the time. And so she was really a great District 4 counselor. Her sign still remains near Sonia's. It's still up on the building there on Main Street. So yeah, probably I would say Barbara. But Connie, it's really only because you picked Connie first. I just didn't want to pick someone. John just farted big time. I did not fart. I did not. But if I did fart, I would totally take total responsibility for said fart. I would say Barbara for me.
That is the other option. There's a great quote when city manager before Augustus.
Michael Bryan.
When Michael Bryan announced he was leaving, is a great quote. I think it was in Go Local at the time. and it was I'm not gonna get the words right because she said it very classy, as she always did. But it was I was surprised. Something like I was surprised to hear that he was going to a company that builds affordable housing because he didn't have much reverence for affordable housing as city manager. It's so perfect. It's so perfect.
Connie's great. Connie's great. By the way, in my deep dive,
that's a Barbara Heller.
Barbara Heller, yeah, her side.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I've been doing the deep dive into the history of voting since 1987. For those of you who don't know, but 1987 was the first time mayors were elected popularly. So there was a second vote, which has kind of screwed up the system even worse than it already was. But anyways, there's a lot of things. But I'm looking at Jordan Levy and all these other old time mayors, 1987. So Connie Lukes has the record for being the mayor with the least amount of votes, 7,500, which is great.
We can talk about that for 1 second. If I were to write a charter, just say if I were, hypothetically, if we were to go to an elected mayor who was the executive, there'd be no city manager could be elected mayor. Then what we have as mayor now, who's really the head of council, right, would be probably council president. That's usually the typical title. I would actually retain electing that person. I would. As
a separate.
Yep.
So would they be elected by the most votes or a separate race?
Yeah, no. So just as we do now. So we keep exactly how we do now.
2 votes. Yeah, 2 separate votes.
Yep.
I don't have a problem.
What I would also do is include district councilors in that.
Oh, that would be interesting.
So if they wanted to run for council president, they could. But I would retain that as because look, the council president does all the appointing to committees. That's powerful.
I will say this:
in a system where I wrote a charter, just hypothetically, committees would actually do stuff and not just be tits on a bowl.
No, I think because the person who gets that role gets, has the power of setting a committee appointments. It's a significant power.
Incredibly important.
That people just don't realize how important it is. To be honest with you, if you imagine just for a minute, if Christian King beats Joe Petty, and I'm not trying to downplay Mr. Awakadaya's chances, but I am downplaying his chances. So I'm just saying that to me, it's a 2-person race. It's between Mayor Petty and Christian King. And so Christian wins. There's a definitive change in committee assignments because, for example, Mayor Petty would then be in committees in different places, right? And that would change the nature of the committee assignment structure. You could imagine in that scenario, Mayor Petty may be upset that he's no longer mayor, passing on things to whatever committee he's assigned to force the hand of newly Mayor King, right? So there's like cool stuff that could happen, interesting, wonky political stuff that would be interesting to me, but maybe it would force the committees to actually have to do work. Because as Tom and I pointed out in this session, and it wasn't even in this session, it was in the session before, there's not been an actual generated ordinance from the city council that's gone through this process.
So somebody pushed back on me on that recently. That stuff has come out of specifically economic development that has turned into ordinances. And I will say, and other councils will tell you this. Council is not on that committee. That economic development actually does work. That
wasn't written by the city manager's office.
I think it was largely dictated from the committee though. The city manager, it's different though. Like if you're saying I want an ordinance to do this, and then they write it from scratch, right? That's one thing. But if you're saying I want A, B, C, D, E, and F in this ordinance, and then they lawyer it, I think that's 2 very different things, right?
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I'd like to know what those items are because they immediately 2 come to mind. And in that case of both of those, Peter Dunn was in those committee meetings and he was engaging directly with the committee. And in my opinion,
that's fine, though. That's fine though. I mean, because it's being like if it's being done in committees, being done in the open, right? I mean, the committee should bring in people, experts, people, all that stuff. That's fine.
The city manager's office, in my opinion, generated the item, and then sent it to the committee. The committee then decided they agreed with it, but it was pushed by the city manager. What I'm saying is, I want to find an item where a city councilor, on the floor of the city councilor, proposes an idea, and then that comes up. It doesn't have to get passed. I'm not asking.
Just get to an ordinance and vote on it.
I just want to get.
The only one that I can remember is crisis pregnancy centers. They actually generated an ordinance that was voted down, but yeah, they generated an ordinance that was debated.
And that wasn't in this term, right? That was in the term before.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. So in this term, I just like to see what that is. The rental registry happened outside of the city.
Yeah, that was driven by the administration. I mean, and that's fine too. Like, I don't have a problem with the city manager going to the council and asking them to pass an ordinance or debate an ordinance. Fine. But it's like when he gives them the language and says, "Hey, vote for this," and they just do. I have a big problem with that.
So in that, okay, so in our lifetime, the president of the United States very, very infrequently proposes legislation. Going back to George Bush. George Bush was the last one where George Bush's team wrote a thing and passed it on. Even President Obama, most of those bills were generated by the House, and it was really mostly Nancy Pelosi's team. They generated a ton of legislation, and he supported stuff. But as far as writing stuff,
I mean, I think this disastrous, big, ugly, stupid bill that they passed, I think that largely came from the administration. I mean, it gets mocked up and changed and amended and blah blah blah. The Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, largely came from the administration. Again, it was amended and changed a million times. But
Pelosi, it was almost 80% of that bill was written by Paul Pelosi. That's a whole nother story for another day. It wasn't generated by Obama. He didn't run on that. It was pivoted into by the Democratic House winning a majority, and they used their majority to push that bill through. But Obama did not run on Obamacare. That was not.
No, but I mean, they brought in the dudes from anyway.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I agree with you that the big beautiful bill is the new kind of thing. I don't know that Eric Batista was elected, right? Was he elected?
No, and his job is to run the government,
so
not legislate.
Shouldn't
but
be
they won't.
those things. I don't think that they should be. I think that that's a major conflict of interest, and that's where and now again, we're talking about charter change as a broader subject for you and me and the future of the city. I don't think an unelected person should be generating ordinances that will then govern people who elected another group to do that, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care where it originates as long as it goes through council. So I kind of disagree. Look, I mean, they have the perspective of the operations of the city, right? That's where they have the experts on their team. And so that...
This is me being skeptical of that expertise. I
mean, but there's people that know stuff about stuff.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Walk
in an operating room and go do open heart surgery.
I can't. I'm not a doctor. I don't know that any of the people that you could point to in the city, other than maybe Peter Dunn, is actually an expert in their field.
Well, that's regardless. I mean, the people in traffic in the traffic division or the mobility division know more about traffic pattern or whatever than anything else we have.
Sure. I then would. So I agree that they know more. I would then go scoreboard and argue results, right? So like their expertise. For example, a wide receiver for the New England Patriots, he gets to play wide receiver. But if he goes out and he runs 10 routes and they throw 10 balls to the guy and he catches 0, that doesn't make him an expert wide receiver.
not unprecedented in the last couple of years.
And so that's what I'm trying to point out. I don't know that the experts are now they will tell you that they're doing all kinds of things. And I will tell you there's one area where this city manager and his team have defeated everybody, and that is kissing the rear end of massive development corporations. They are amazing at that. No one has ever done better than this city manager at putting his lips to the behinds of the big giant developers.
I don't know why I had to go there.
Somebody cut that and print that and put that out there into the universe, because that's how I feel. That is how I feel. By the way, I want to say this real quickly. Several people have brought this up to me of my criticism of Madison, the developer, that people from Madigan, the builder, have heard and think that I'm criticizing them. So let me put this right on here. You can cut this out too. Madigan, the builder who builds a lot of projects, is a contractor that has done a ton of work in the city of Worcester and actually does a pretty good job. They're building the senior thing over by the Coliseum, right? The Worcester Coliseum. The project, from what I can see, it looks amazing. Good for them. They've done several of the lofts and other things like that. In the past, they're the only company that ever passed, before they put the new rules in, the old DEI rules, right? They're the only builder in the city. So good for them. It's not Madigan. Madigan, good job. Madison, bad job. There you go. right from John's mouth. So, by the way, if Madigan Properties would like to get a hold of Tom and I, and they want to advertise in This Week in Worcester, we accept sponsorships. We have an ad book and everything. You can get on here and you can help us continue our fight for the truth and justice in the city of Worcester in all areas, including my just right now making sure everybody knows Madigan is great. We're pro Madigan. Madigan.
Did we just become Captain America or something? For those at the beginning of the show opining for my yelling, you got plenty of it.
Yeah.
Ooh, did that make me mad today?
That is. We're under 2 hours, though.
Yeah, we are up against that time limit. So thank you all for joining. If we missed a question or something, I apologize. We try to get to them all. Have a great week. We will be back here at 8:30 next Sunday to try and screw it up less than. Until then.
Avoid zombies. Avoid